Imagine this. You wake up on a Saturday morning, pour a cup of coffee, and spend 3 hours building a miniature ship inside a glass bottle. Or maybe you play a video game, paint a picture, or learn a song on a guitar. You do something completely useless, simply because it feels good. Now go back 40,000 years. Outside a cave, the Ice Age is merciless. The wind screams through the darkness. Somewhere beyond the firelight, wolves are hunting. This should be a world with no room for hobbies. We imagine our ancestors as survival machines, hunting, gathering, and fighting every second just to stay alive. But then archaeologists discover something strange. A flute carved from a bird bone, a perfectly shaped stone axe that may never have been used, paintings hidden deep inside caves, tiny shells and beads, collected simply because they were beautiful. Why would people struggling to survive spend precious time on things that seem completely useless? And the answer may change everything we think it means to be human, because maybe hobbies were not a luxury that appeared after civilization. Maybe hobbies helped create civilization itself. When most people picture prehistoric life, they imagine endless work. Every day is a desperate search for food. Every mistake means death. But anthropology paints a different picture. Many hunter-gatherers probably had more free time than we imagine. A successful hunt could feed a group for days. Gathering plants did not always require endless labor. There were evenings, there were long winters. There were days of waiting, and whenever humans have free time, something remarkable happens. They begin to play. Imagine sitting beside a fire after sunset. The hunt is over, the children are asleep, the stars fill the sky. What do you do now? You talk, you laugh, you tell stories, you sing. Perhaps this is where the first hobbies were born. Because boredom may be one of humanity's oldest emotions, the human brain hates inactivity. Once the work of survival is finished, the mind begins searching for something else to do. And sometimes, that something else changes history. Consider one of humanity's oldest tools, the Acheulean handaxe. For more than 1,000,000 years, these stone tools helped our ancestors survive. But then archaeologists noticed something strange. Some handaxes are almost perfectly symmetrical. Some are made from unusually beautiful stone. Others are so large and heavy that they would have been terrible tools. Their makers spent extra hours creating objects that were not simply useful. Why? Nobody knows. Perhaps they enjoyed the challenge. Perhaps they were showing off their skill. Perhaps making tools had become something more than survival. A craft, a passion, maybe even a hobby. Imagine an early human sitting beside a river, carefully shaping a stone long after it has become sharp enough to use. They keep going, not because they need to, because they want to. That desire to make something beautiful for its own sake still exists inside us. Then archaeologists discovered something even more astonishing. Ancient flutes. Some were carved from bird bones, others were made from mammoth ivory. One famous flute is over 35,000 years old. Think about that. While mammoths still walked the earth, someone was making music. Creating that instrument required patience, precision, and many hours of work. And when it was finished, someone played a song. Imagine the scene. Outside, snow falls silently. Inside the cave, orange sparks drift toward the ceiling. A child sits beside the fire. Then the flute begins to play. The child goes quiet. The adults listen. For a few minutes, the cold world beyond the cave disappears. That feeling feels strangely familiar, because even today, music can make us forget our fears, our worries, and our loneliness. The instruments changed. The need for music never did. Deep inside caves in Europe and Indonesia, archaeologists discovered extraordinary paintings. There are horses, mammoths, lions, and giant bison, painted with remarkable skill. Some are more than 30,000 years old. People gathered pigments, carried fire into deep caves, and crawled through narrow passages simply to reach certain walls. They were not living there. They were visiting these places to make art. One handprint found on a cave wall belonged to a child 30,000 years ago. That child pressed their hand against stone and left behind a message. "I was here." For a long time, scientists assumed that art, music, and games were simply side effects of intelligence. But what if we have the story backward? What if art, music, games, and storytelling actually helped build the human mind? Making art trains symbolic thinking. Music develops memory and pattern recognition. Games teach strategy and cooperation. Stories preserve knowledge and teach lessons. Perhaps these activities were exercise for the brain. Perhaps hobbies were not separate from survival. Perhaps they were hidden survival tools, because a group that sings together stays together. A story can teach children how to avoid danger. A game can train young hunters. And a painting can preserve an idea for thousands of years. Archaeologists have discovered shells, colorful stones, and beads carried hundreds of miles. They were not food. They were not weapons. People kept them simply because they were beautiful. Ancient humans were doing more than surviving. They were living. So, did cavemen have hobbies? The evidence says yes. But perhaps we have been asking the wrong question. The real question is this: did hobbies help make us human? Because the first person who painted a cave wall was not building a shelter. The first musician was not hunting. The first storyteller was not making a weapon. They were creating meaning. They were creating culture. They were creating connection. Somewhere in the darkness of prehistory, beside a flickering fire, a song was played, a picture was drawn, and a story was told. And in those simple moments, humanity became something more than a species trying to survive. It became a species capable of imagination, a species capable of beauty, a species capable of creating things that are wonderfully unnecessary. And perhaps that is what truly made us human. Now let's come back to today. The wolves are gone. The ice age has ended. The caves are now empty. But peek into any home tonight, and that same fire is still burning. It has just changed its shape. A father humming softly while washing the dishes. A young person drawing on the edge of their notebook instead of taking notes. A grandmother knitting a sweater that nobody asked for. None of it is necessary. None of it saves anyone's life. And yet, all of it feels necessary. We collect coins, we collect stamps, we collect old photographs and faded records. Our ancestors collected shells and beads the very same way. There is no practical reason for it, yet we still do it. Why? Maybe because something inside us refuses to live life based on usefulness alone. Think about your own hobbies for a moment. The garden you tend to after a long, tiring day, the puzzle you solve at midnight, even though it changes nothing in your life. The song you sing off-key in the shower, but with your whole heart. These things are not distractions from being human. Perhaps they are the clearest proof of it. Researchers studying creativity have noted something interesting. People who make time for useless, joyful activities think more clearly. They solve problems faster. They cope with stress more easily. A hobby is not separate from the rest of life. It silently repairs the mind, so the rest of life can keep going. Perhaps this is our oldest inheritance, older than language, older than agriculture, older than cities. Long before a single word was ever written, someone was already humming beside a fire. Someone was carving a stone purely for the joy of carving it. Someone was painting an animal on a cave wall that perhaps no one else would ever see. That instinct never left us. Only its tools changed. The bone flute became a guitar. The cave wall became a canvas, a notebook, a screen. A handful of beads became a shelf of small, sentimental objects that mean nothing to anyone else and everything to you. So the next time you spend an entire day on something useless, remember this: you are not wasting time. You are doing the same thing a child did 30,000 years ago when they pressed their hand against a cave wall. In your own quiet way, you are saying, I was here, I felt something, I made something. And perhaps that, more than any tool, more than any fire, is the truest sign of being human.